What's good, Atlanta? This is the Vlog and Dirty Podcast, where Dirty Bird is the word. If you haven't heard, I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer for FanSided. Only one more week before the regular season starts, but with the preseason being in the books, we got some stuff to talk about with your beloved Atlanta Falcons. Dog sitting once again. The content doesn't change, but the environment behind me always does. Hopefully, the cacophony of leaf blowers can't stop, won't stop. This is Atlanta. This is what they do. But I've got some thoughts about the Falcons heading into the season, their initial 53-man roster, Kaleb McGary's injury. I'll also tell you who's going to make the playoffs in both conferences. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So really exciting show for you guys here today. Be sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. Really make this thing grow here for Blog and Dirty Bird Nation. So excited for the season to come. Let's get started with some vibe check. How are we feeling about the Falcons heading into the season? Obviously, I'm really excited about this. I could care less that the team went 0-3 in the preseason, got blown out by the Cowboys. Whatever. There weren't really any major injuries in the games themselves. That being said, Kaleb McGary having to undergo season-ending knee surgery is not great at all. I'll talk about that here in a second. So that certainly puts a damper on what could be a fantastic year for the Falcons. Really need the offensive line to stay healthy. Again, this team's got a lot of high-end talent, but not necessarily a lot of depth. That will be tested. And I've got some thoughts with the initial 53-man roster. It does seem as though the offense is really coming together under Zach Robinson. It also seems as though the defense is really starting to buy into what Jeff Ulbrich wants to do on that side of the ball. But I think more importantly, Raheem Morris has to prove he's a head coach in this league. He's a fantastic assistant. But like his previous run there with the Buccaneers and last year, as a head coach, has left some to be desired. Needless to say, there's a lot of pressure on both Raheem Morris and general manager Terry Fontenot in this season. Atlanta really needs to make the playoffs. We all know that it's Tampa Bay's division to lose. Maybe the Falcons can get it. Carolina is going to be a lot better. And while the Saints may be circling the drain this year, I don't expect that they're going to be down for very long anyway. So, yeah, I think for the most part, when it comes to this team, I'm very excited for the season ahead. Very anxious to see how the team plays at home versus Tampa Bay next Sunday. But next week will kind of be like our week one preview show and everything like that. A lot of big changes here for FanSided, Minute Media, and just the world as a whole and everything like that. So I'll probably get more into that in the shows to come. But yeah, I'm really excited that we're still going to be able to do the show once a week, really grow this audience, really get to know each and every one of you. But I would say, yeah, I think we should be optimistic about this season. This is the time of year where that's commonplace. That's when it should happen. So, yeah, vibes are high, but a little bit pressed down there with the Kaleb McGary injury. So with that in mind, let's move on to some look good, feel good, play good, pay good. Some of my thoughts on the McGary injury and what it means for the Falcons in the trenches. There's no way around this. This sucks. This is a guy that weeks ago the Falcons gave an extension to. They gave him, 2 more years to be essentially Michael Penix Jr.'s blindside protector there at right tackle. Because remember, Penix is left-handed, so the offensive line switches. Obviously, there's no reason to move like Jake Matthews over to right tackle and move it all around. Like, this isn't really this isn't the way to do it. Obviously, this is probably why there's so few left-handed starting quarterbacks in this league. But I mean, guys from years past, whether that would be Steve Young, Michael Vick, Boomer Esiason, I'm sure I'm missing Ken Stabler. Like, there's been guys that threw up Tua that are left-handed that have had a lot of success in this league. I think this is an issue in terms of being able to really establish the run. Look, I know Penix can move a little bit. He's not the most mobile guy, but he's not a statue like Matt Ryan was. So he could probably, extend the play a little bit more with his legs than maybe some quarterbacks we've had in years past. The same sort of thing applies to, his rocket left arm being able to fire that football into a very tight window, get the ball out a little bit later than maybe some of his contemporaries or other quarterbacks from yesteryear. But I think the Falcons' bread and butter as a team is still running the football, behind the likes of Chris Lindstrom, Jake Matthews, and then obviously Ryan Newsel and Matthew Bergeron's roles have really stepped up here. I'll probably touch on this here in a second about the state of the Falcons' offensive line. This is a big opportunity for Elijah Wilkinson. Ryan Newsel needs to be what they hoped they were getting by letting Drew Dalman walk. Again, like, we let Drew Dalman walk because we believed we had three other really strong guys along the offensive line. And maybe we still do, but somebody has to step up. So it's a big year for Bergeron. It's a big year for Newsel. Obviously, I mentioned Elijah Wilkinson. Storm Norton will kind of be a swing tackle when he comes back. Kyle Hinton's on the team. And then Jack Nelson, who looked miserable in training camp, 7th-round pick out of Wisconsin. He becomes a more valuable piece for this team. So, look, this is the consequence of like paying some guy before the season begins. You're paying McGary a premium for nothing. You're getting nothing out of him this season. Hopefully get him back in time next season. And he's not a spring chicken anymore. He's been with the Falcons for several years now out of Washington. I believe he came into the league in 19 as the 31st overall pick out of, out of Washington. Same draft class as Chris Lindstrom. But as I'm sitting here, like, this is the one thing that really has me concerned. If we're going to struggle running the football to one side of the field with Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, and congratulations to Nate Carter making the team, we can't have half the field be we can't have half the field be not open to us making plays because we don't have a trustworthy right tackle. There may be guys out there that the Falcons could conceivably sign to rectify this issue. Again, this is kind of like a one-year thing, and we'll see if McGary plays for the team in 26. Again, I think it's only a 2-year contract extension. Maybe he's on the team through 27. Again, I'm not entirely sure. This was supposed to be a contract year for him, but we gave him an extension for 2 years. So, yeah, probably 27. So, anyway, this is it's hard for me to really be optimistic about losing him. Look, I think that he's not the best player on this team, but I would say of the 10 or 15 most important guys, he's certainly up there. I think if the team were to lose Jesse Bates III, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, that would probably be devastating. Maybe even Chris Lindstrom in that regard. You may say the same sort of thing about Michael Penix Jr., but you have Kirk Cousins backing him up. So football's a game of injuries. Guys are going to get hurt. It sucks that he's not going to be a part of this team, but hey, it opens up an opportunity for somebody else to be a more impactful player. And again, in years past, like in my 35 years of fandom of this team, there have been guys that have stepped up and made plays, particularly in the trenches, guys that people overlooked. I've talked about this when I've remembered dudes, Andy Levitre coming over from the Titans, Chris Chester coming over from Washington. Todd McClure was a 7th-round pick. Ryan Schraeder went undrafted out of Valdosta. There are guys that are not necessarily blue chippers in the trenches that can make a difference. And again, yes, I wish Drew Dalman was still on this team because that would make me feel a lot more confident about this injury and being able to survive it and come out of this okay. But again, he was only a 4th-round pick out of Stanford, and Stanford hasn't been good since Christian McCaffrey played for them. It's been they're going to be awful this year. They're going to be probably one of the worst teams in the Power 4. But anyway, like, it'll be interesting to see exactly how the Falcons plan to line up. I'm going to look at their depth chart really quickly here over on Our-Lads. I loved that. It has all the good depth charts for both the NFL and college football. It looks as though Elijah Wilkinson is going to be manning right tackle. The Falcons obviously traded for Michael Jarrell for like a late-round pick to kind of rectify losing McGary for the season. Kyle Hinton's the right guard backup to Chris Lindstrom. Javon Gwynn's behind Ryan Newsel, and then Jack Nelson's behind Jake Matthews. That's kind of how the depth chart looks right now on the offensive side for Atlanta. Good news is we'll talk about Darnell Mooney here and him being back and healthy to start the year as well. But Again, these are names that we've probably come to know about the Falcons' offensive line the last couple of years. But I mean, again, you're losing your third most important piece, and a guy that was being paid considerably more money to take some pressure off him, being Michael Penix's blindside protector. This stinks. There's really no way around it. There have been other devastating injuries across football, but this one really, 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 really hurts this team considerably. So just keeping that all in mind here. So let's move on to our next topic here with a further calibration to our roster. Let's assess the Falcons' initial 53-man roster real quick. So I've got this pulled up here on AtlantaFalcons.com. Tara Wack, Will McFadden, Tori McElhaney put this all together for the website. They did a great job over there, per usual as always. So here's kind of what's going on with the Falcons' 53-man roster. They're keeping two quarterbacks, just Michael Penix Jr. and Kirk Cousins. Easton Stick got cut, which was a surprise. I thought Easton Stick played very well in the preseason. Again, Penix and Cousins did not play at all. Emory Jones has been dealing with concussions, so they were able to kind of cut ties with him for that. Ben DiNucci played awful versus the Cowboys. He was let go. So, I mean, again, maybe the Falcons are going to end up rostering a guy on a practice squad. Hopefully Stick clears waivers and comes back, because I like to see him be in and around the team, particularly if the notion of Cousins getting traded presents itself. So keep that in mind. We're keeping three running backs with Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, and Nathan Carter. Carter had that big run versus the Titans there, really stepped up, really did a great job there for the Falcons. Really allowed Carlos Washington Jr., he didn't make the team. Jason McClellan, the draft pick last year, he didn't really stick. And again, the Falcons don't utilize a fullback. It's more of a lightning and thunder sort of approach, with Bijan Robinson sort of as lightning and Tyler Algier sort of as thunder. But I think the Falcons have one of the best running back tandems in the league, so don't really have to worry about that too terribly much. Moving on down to wide receiver and tight end, they're keeping 7 receivers and they're keeping 4 tight ends. At receiver, you got Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod III, Kadarius Hodge, Casey Washington, David Sills IV, and Jamal Agnew. Okay, we all knew that Drake London was going to make the team. We all knew Darnell Mooney was going to make the team. We all knew Ray McLeod was going to make the team. And we all knew Kadarius Hodge was going to make the team. Hodge will be wide receiver 4, but still a special teams ace for this team as well. Casey Washington really proved enough during training camp that he didn't play much at all in spring. For the preseason, his spot kind of got locked up. Jamal Agnew has come over in free agency. He's going to be kind of more of a special teams guy. But it's very interesting to see David Sills make the team over the likes of Nick Nash, Chris Blair, Dylan Drummond. I believe David Sills played at West Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. So, West Virginia guy, played there for a couple of years. Spent some time with the Bills, Giants, and Broncos, coming over here to the Falcons and everything like that. Again, kind of surprised to see 7, particularly that with 2 of the guys on there, with it being Agnew and Hodge being very much what's the word I'm looking for? Special teams guys. Again, every roster spot matters, and I think the wide receiver room is a little bit deeper than I anticipated. And as for tight end, what are we doing? You have Kyle Pitts Sr. Apparently, he's got a kid now. I didn't know that. Charlie Warner, he was obviously going to make the team. Felipe Franks, shockingly, made the team. Again, probably as a special teams player. We just can't quit him for some reason. We let him go to the Panthers. He comes back. And then former Texans tight end Tegan Quitoriano is coming over. And again, I'm stunned that Franks and Quitoriano are both on the team. But again, maybe Franks is just that valuable on special teams that Raheem Morris said, we can't really do part with him. So that's very odd to me. And offensive line, I've already mentioned this: Jake Matthews, Matthew Bergeron, Ryan Newsel, Chris Lindstrom, and Elijah Wilkinson up front. Jack Nelson, Javon Gwynn, and Kyle Hinton are your backups. I'm trying to think how else they've got some of this other stuff here too. I know you got the guy they traded for. We'll see what happens here. It's all wacky. It's all a mess. Defensive line. Moving over to defense. Thank God. Five guys: David Onyemata, Brandon Dorless, Laquel London, Rook Orhoro, and Zach Harrison. I know Brandon Dorless has played very well during training camp, and there's a lot of expectations for Rook this year. But man, I really do not like our defensive line. Like we got to be like bottom four in the league with this, like bottom eighth. I hope it works out because I do like our edge rushers a bit. I do think that that's part of the team that the team's going to potentially have a good amount of success with. So looking at that, we've got 6 edge rushers making the team. Arnold Ebiketie, Leonard Floyd, Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr., Braylon Trice, D'Angelo Malone. Floyd's been around for a while, and obviously everybody else is homegrown. Ebiketie and Malone and Trice were all previous draft picks, and then obviously Walker and Pierce. They've been with the team, just this year as first rounders. Malone's played. They thought about moving him inside as a stack linebacker, so he may be more of a versatile piece to use. Jeff Ulbrich thinks really highly of the guy, and we all know that's what Jalen Walker's best skill set is coming out of Georgia. As far as Ebiketie, Floyd, Trice, and Pierce, those are more of your traditional edge rushers. Ebiketie and Floyd are going to be your starters. They're going to be the guys lining up more often than not. And then Pierce they're going to basically make him earn his snaps, which I think is a little bit of gaslighting. But I also think that this is an area that we're going to get the most out of his unique skill set. Then obviously Braylon Trice was a menace there at Washington, a third-round pick out of UW last year, but hasn't played the NFL in a game that counts thus far. Glad to see him back, but the edge rushing room, I like that infinitely more than I do the defensive line. So let's move on down to the next position group, which is inside linebacker. 4 guys here. You got Caden Ellis, Devon Diablo, JD Bertrand, Josh Woods. Caden Ellis is kind of like the leader of the group. JD Bertrand's the young up-and-comer out of Notre Dame. Local product, played at Blessed Trinity up here in Roswell. Devon Diablo was a big free agent acquisition for the team, effectively replacing Lorenzo Carter, who I believe retired after saying, I'm not going to work with the Titans. And then Josh Woods apparently had a really strong training camp and preseason, so glad to have him on the team. He effectively takes the always injured Troy Anderson spot. Moving on to your cornerbacks, you've got 7 guys here. A.J. Terrell, Jr., that's kind of redundant, but of course it's Jr., but A.J. Terrell, Mike Hughes, Billy Bowman Jr., Clark Phillips III, D. Alford, Mike Ford Jr., Natron Brooks. Terrell, Hughes, Bowman, and Phillips kind of all felt like they were going to make the team. Alford was kind of on the fence, but I think he played well enough during the training camp and in the preseason and everything like that, but I always feel he's just one blown coverage away from not making the team. Mike Ford looks strong, and then Natron Brooks as well. Seemed to really play well down the stretch. Looking over at safety, you've got Jesse Bates III, Xavier Watson, DeMarco Helms, Jordan Fuller, one of the Fuller brothers, whatever. He didn't make the team. That was a free agent guy that they went after. Didn't work out. Same with Morgan Fox out of the Chargers. A lot of guys they signed in free agency just haven't worked out. But we all know how good Jesse Bates III is. Love me some Xavier Watts coming out of Notre Dame. DeMarco Helms played really well down the stretch for the Falcons in 23. Got hurt last year, missed all of last season. A player that his former college coach, Nick Saban, absolutely loves Alabama. Again, I really like this. I really like the secondary for the Falcons. Linebacking core is decent. I hate our defensive line. And then specialists, Younghoe Koo is the punter, Bradley Pinion. Younghoe Koo is the kicker. Bradley Pinion is the punter. Liam McCullough is the long snapper. Again, when you have consistency with all 3 of those guys working in unison, you can really have a really strong special teams unit. And again, if one of those 3 is not up to snuff, then that hurts the team. If you can't trust Koo to make kicks, the team hurts. If Pinion can't boom it deep, that hurts the team as well. If McCullough cannot reliably snap, that makes everything else impossible. The Falcons also said they released 12 players. They placed offensive lineman Jake Hansen under reserve. They've released Jordan Fuller at safety, Ronnie Harris at inside linebacker, C.J. Henderson at cornerback, Kareem Carey out on the edge, Brandon Park at offensive tackle, Easton Stick at quarterback, Katavius Street at defensive line, Keith Taylor cornerback, and then Jake Hansen on the offensive line. He's got injury settlement. They've also waived the following players: Simon Barrow Jr. defensive line, Henry Black safety, Chris Blair wide receiver, Kobe Bryant at quarterback, Deshaun Corbin at running back, Dylan Drummond at wide receiver, Joshua Gray offensive line, Dante Manning cornerback, Nick Nash wide receiver, Joshua Simon tight end, Carlos Washington Jr. running back, Jordan Williams offensive line, and then Lenny Craig, the kicker, but he's an international player. Hopefully the Falcons can bring him back and roster him because he's got a leg first well. And then there's two players that are designated return from injury reserve. That's Daquan Graham along the defensive line and Storm Norton along the offensive line. And then Kaleb McGary is now reserve injured for the year. And then Grayland Arnold at cornerback, Emory Jones, Tyron Wheatley Jr. have all been placed there previously. Troy Anderson still on the PUP list, and then Malik Verdon is kind of on a non-football injury list. So that's really kind of the way that's all shaking out. I know that was a lot for you and everyone here, but just having some familiarity and some just kind of knowing what's going to happen. I think for me, the biggest surprise is probably that Stick's not making the team. And I also think that Sills at wide receiver was a bit strange. But I also think the Kaleb McGary injury put a wrinkle in all this. They probably added more guys to the offensive line room to kind of secure areas that there might be some doubt. That's as well. But I also think it's a pleasant surprise to see Mooney on this as opposed to designated to return. Again, I think they're like, no, we need him the first 4 weeks of the season. I think he'll be ready to go versus the Bucs. And if not, he'll be good to go versus I forget who we're playing week 2. I think the Panthers and the Commanders are up there pretty quickly as well. Vikings week 2. There we go. So yeah, we've got our 53-man roster. There will be guys that they'll be adding and subtracting throughout the season, but this is who Raheem Morris, Terry Fontenot, and the rest of the team thought deserved to make the team. So I'll trust their judgment for the 35th time in a row, and we'll see what happens. All right, let's move on to the second half of our show with Around the Perimeter. As promised, I'm going to share with you my picks to win each division, make teams to make the playoffs, how they'll do, and who will win the Super Bowl, and where do the Falcons fit in all this. So I'm going to work my way from the AFC North, South, East, and West, and the NFC North, South, East, and West. So this is how we're going to do it. I have the data. I might as well share it on the program for the content for all of y'all. So in the AFC North, I've got the Baltimore Ravens winning it at 14-3. Your second place team is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals at 12-5. Your third place team is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers at 8-9. The Mike Tomlin streak ends of winning seasons. And then the Browns, they're going to finish in last at 5-12. Baltimore's one of my favorite teams this season. They've got a lot going for them. I'm very bullish on the Bengals, even though they were paying 75% of their team's salary cap to 3 players. And Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and then now, thank goodness, Trey Hendrickson. So I'm very high in the Bengals. Again, I can't quit Joe Burrow. He's probably my favorite player in the NFL that doesn't play for the Falcons. The Steelers, I'm really down on them across the board. Do not like Aaron Rodgers at this stage of his career. I think him playing for Mike Tomlin's a disaster. I think him playing for Arthur Smith's even worse. The Steelers might be in for a very rough season. Defensively, they'll be pretty good, but they gave T.J. Watt all that money. He's not young. This could be a challenge. There's about 10 coaching regimes across sport that I'm just done with, and I would say that the Mike Tomlin era of Pittsburgh, like I'm just so out of it. Like Brian Snitker era of the Braves, Aaron Boone at the Yankees, Lincoln Riley at USC. There could be other ones out there, but like I'm just so done with the Steelers. And then the Browns. It's been a very chaotic year at quarterback. I don't know who did or didn't make the team. I know that like Dylan Gabriel's the 2. Maybe they kept Shedeur Sanders. It's Joe Flacco. They traded Kenny Pickett to the Raiders because Aiden O'Connell's hurt. I just hope that the Browns win enough games they don't fire Kevin Stefanski or Andrew Berry because I think they're good at their jobs. And at that point, draft your quarterback next year. if Sanders or Gabriel can't do it. Unfortunately, I think they're going to take hometown hero Drew Aller out of Penn State. I don't think he's really any good. Maybe go get you Garrett Nussmeier out of LSU. I think I'd like that, but he may go to his hometown Saints and play for his dad's team. Moving on to the AFC South, I've got the Tennessee Titans in first place at 9-8. I've got the Houston Texans in second at 8-9, the Jaguars in third at 6-11, and the Colts at fourth at 5-12. This division is only going to get one team in the playoffs. This division, I'm kind of the belief that Houston may or may not have missed its window to really take advantage of the other rivals being down. Colts are a mess, but I think there's things to like about what the Titans and Jaguars could do moving forward. The passing game is going to have to drive the bus there in Jacksonville. But again, is Trevor Lawrence going to be a guy? Is he actually going to carry this team? I kind of think Liam Cohen's a raging dork, but we'll see what he does if he can mesh with people. I'm not high on Travis Hunter playing both ways. He needs to play one. He should be playing cornerback, but because Liam Cohen's an offensive mind, he's going to play wide receiver. And as for the Titans, I just really like the rapport that could potentially be had with Cam Ward and Brian Callahan. I understand that ownership is insane there in Nashville and that Amy Adams-Strunk seriously thought about firing Brian Callahan after a year. Like, he'll get hired immediately. He was a phenomenal OC for the Bengals. Like, if Zach Robinson has a great year here and we need a new OC, and he gets I go get Brian Callahan. I get a guy like that. So, yeah, very high on the Titans here. The Colts, no real reason to watch them other than when the Falcons play them. Moving over to the AFC East, I've got Buffalo Bills at 13-4, winning the division. Second place, I've got the Patriots at 10-7. Third place, I've got the Dolphins at 4-13. I've got the Jets at 4-13 as well. I do not think that the Jets or Dolphins are going to have a good year. I think the Dolphins have a lot of stuff working against them potentially in terms of, how would I say this? Like, I feel like Sean McDermott might be on the hot seat too in Buffalo for all we know. But I would say for the most part that like Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer, they're under a lot of pressure. We all know Tua is one play away from never playing football again. And I just think the Dolphins are just too screwy. They haven't won a playoff game in 25 years. Don't see that happening this year. The Jets, for as much as I like Aaron Glenn as a head coach, I don't like Justin Fields as a quarterback. They should have drafted a guy instead of taking a flyer on Fields. Probably should go with Jackson Dart, in all honesty. But that's just me. Armand Memby might be a great player too. I do think Mason Taylor has a good career there as well. Patriots are a team I'm very high on in the AFC because, again, somebody's got to finish in second place in that division of Buffalo. Mike Vrabel's the ultimate alpha male. I think Drake Magro is playing for Josh McDaniels. Team's got to be better on defense. They got to be more well-rounded, but there's opportunities for wins to be had there. And I think the Patriots take advantage. And then moving on to the AFC West, I've got the Chiefs winning the division at 14-3. I've got the Broncos in second at 12-5, Chargers at 10-7 in third place, and then I've got the Raiders at 6-11. The Chiefs are eventually going to pull back, but until I see something definitive out of their three rivals in division, it's always going to be them. I don't necessarily know exactly what the Chiefs' ceiling is this year. I'm kind of dubious on them getting back to the Super Bowl, but like that's the team to beat. Really high on Denver. Shockingly, as a Falcons fan, me being high on Denver and Sean Payton, and Bo Nix, like, why would I ever do that to myself? But I think that they work together well. Offensive line there in Denver is fantastic. Don't really love their weapons. Defensively, I think they've got a lot of pieces there. Plus, Denver's always kind of got a good defense. Really trust them. As far as the Chargers are concerned, Justin Herbert just needs to prove to me he can be a guy. I'm never going to root for Jim Harbaugh on anything ever again. Michigan got away with murder, basically. 14-year show cause. Like, if he wanted to go back and coach in college football again, he'll be 75. Like, that's never happening again. I will say that Omarion Hampton at running back is going to be phenomenal for the Bolts. It'll be interesting to see if the Chargers really become Ravens West Coast, because obviously it's John Harbaugh's younger brother, and then Joe Ortiz came over from Eric DeCosta's front office there in Maryland and everything like that. So in terms of overall seeding in the AFC, I've got the Ravens getting the 1 seed in the bye. 2 seed, I've got the Chiefs hosting. I got the Chiefs at 2, the Bills at 3, and the Titans at 4. My 5 seed, I've got the Broncos coming in there, Bengals at 6, and then Chargers at 7. So first round of the AFC, I've got the Chiefs getting past the Chargers, a division rivalry, but like we know how that typically works out. Plus, it'll be at Arrowhead. The Chargers don't win playoff games. Chiefs all day there. Bengals at the Bills. For as much as I want to keep hyping up Joe Burrow and them, I think that Josh Allen's got a little bit better of a roster across the board than he does in Cincinnati. It'll be in the elements. Not that really matters, but I'll take Buffalo there. And then I got the Broncos going to the Titans. I think the Broncos get their first playoff win there over the Titans because, like, look, the Broncos should probably be the 4 seed, but the Titans get the 4 seed because of, I don't know. Maybe I'm doing this all wrong, but like they're going to beat the Titans in the first round pretty easily. And then your divisionals, you've got the Ravens hosting the Broncos and the Chiefs hosting the Bills. I got to go with the higher seeds, the favorites winning that. The Broncos just not quite ready for a well-rested Baltimore team. They might run out of gas a little bit more versus a Titans team that I think is going to challenge them. And the Chiefs still continually own the Bills number in the playoffs, but they'll make a game of it. So the AFC Championship game is going to be in the Charm City with the Ravens hosting the Chiefs. And I think Lamar Jackson, the boys, get it done. I'm very high on this team this year. I think that a little bit easier a matchup for the Ravens versus just the Broncos, whereas the Chiefs, they got to play the Chargers, and then they got to play the Bills, and they got to play the Ravens. I think there might be some attrition there. I think as a 2 seed, it's really punitive for them this season. And I don't think the Chiefs get back to the Super Bowl because it's not going to be the Arrowhead Invitational. It'll be at M&T Bank Stadium. So I've got the Ravens winning the AFC. Let's move on to the down to the NFC real quick. So NFC North, I've got the scroll down a little bit further. At the NFC North, I've got the Lions winning the division at 12-5. I've got the Packers going 11-6 in second place. I've got the Bears going 7-10 in third place, and I got the Vikings going 4-13. I know I can't quit the Vikings. I've got so much hate in my heart for J.J. McCarthy. It's unbelievable. But even though the Lions lost 2 star coordinators and Ben Johnson to the Bears and Aaron Glenn to the Jets, it's still Danny Campbell's team. More importantly, it's still Brad Holmes' team. This guy's a phenomenal general manager. So much talent on this roster, and I think Jared Goff's a damn good quarterback. They got a fantastic running back tandem with David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs. They'll pull back a little bit, but like pulling back for them is like not going to get the 1 seed. Still making the playoffs, maybe win a game or so. We'll see what happens there with the Lions. The Packers, again, I feel like their floor is their ceiling. I got to see Jordan Love take a step forward, and more importantly, I got to see Matt LaFleur get better as a head coach. The defense may be the way forward for them because it's going to be year 2 with Jeff Hafley calling shots on that side of the ball after leaving Boston College. I think the Matthew Golden pick is going to really help add some balance to the offense. But again, the Packers they're a team that's like they're going to make the playoffs. Maybe they'll win a game or 2, but I can't see them getting to the Super Bowl. The Bears, there will be things that Kaleb Williams will do this year that will wow us, and there will be things that will make us perpetually face-palming. More importantly, I'm kind of dubious of him and head coach Ben Johnson being able to gel as quickly together. Johnson's kind of got a crashing sense of urgency, very much by the script. Kaleb Williams is kind of laissez-faire, kind of just make it up as you go. They're going to kind of be at odds, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the team's going to be bad. Don't really trust Ryan Poles as the general manager, but they do have pieces there in Chicago. But again, you still play in a really tough division. And as far as the Vikings are concerned, if J.J. McCarthy is not good this year, he's never going to be good. And I understand they've got an overqualified defensive coordinator in Brian Flores. Kevin O'Connell's a fantastic head coach. I just look at the quarterback issues there. And also the fact Max Brosmer is your number 2. Like, this could be a really bad quarterback room very quickly. McCarthy, I just think it's just like a slightly better version of Zach Wilson. Again, I could be wrong in all this, but like I don't see it. I don't buy it. So maybe I'll be wrong in that regard. Now to our division. This is gonna be a lot of fun. In first place, I've got your Atlanta Falcons winning the division at 11-6. They have a tiebreaker of the second place team, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I also have at 11-6. It goes down to like the eighth tiebreaker in the scenario. I can't really explain it, but somehow the Falcons got in here. Or you can just believe me. That's fine too. Then I got I got the Panthers in third at 7-10, and then I got the Saints at a god awful 1-16. Look, if I think the Saints are going to be this bad, I think that basically means the Falcons and the Buccaneers get two really easy wins in division. I think they probably split with each other, have us probably winning the home game in week 1, us losing later on in Tampa. Again, that makes sense. Hard to see us beating that team 4 times in a row. Maybe we split with Carolina too. And I think really the biggest thing for me when it comes to the Falcons over the Buccaneers is I think that the slightly tougher schedule for Tampa Bay is going to be a little bit more than the Falcons' schedule. Like Tampa's not quite good enough to play a first place schedule. Not to say the Falcons are either, but they're playing like a second place schedule. More importantly, Baker Mayfield's kind of operating at his ceiling, and we don't know what Penix is yet. If Penix can really take his game up a notch, that could be phenomenal. Atlanta could have one of the best offenses in the league. The other big thing with Tampa is they've got major coaching attrition. Again, they're on yet another offensive coordinator because Liam Cohen's now the head coach in Jacksonville. Dave Canellis is in division year 2 with Carolina. And even though Josh Grizzard was on staff, he's going to give the ball. It's going to give Baker Mayfield more of an opportunity to kind of do what he does. But the problem with that is anytime Baker Mayfield's allowed to cook like Russell Wilson, he gets himself in trouble because he's not as mobile as he thinks he is. He's not as athletic as he thinks he is. Tampa's also pretty banged up. Chris Godwin's been dealing with a dislocated ankle. Tristan Wirfs is out for the first few weeks. Jalen McMillan's out for the first half of the season. Going to put a lot of stuff on guys like Mike Evans, the ageless Mike Evans. Emeka Egbuka is going to be a big-time player for them. We'll see if Tez Johnson made the team. Again, not really paying attention to like the other teams in the league who made the roster. Again, this all went down last night. I'll probably talk more about that, in the lead up to the game with the Buccaneers in week 1 as well. Do really my deep dive in on the Buccaneers here. But, I got the Falcons there. Carolina, I feel like they're kind of like the Cardinals. They're a year away from being a year away. And the Saints they're going to be awful. I feel really bad for Kellen Moore. But then again, he didn't have to take this job. He could have just stayed in Philadelphia and been the OC one more year. But, head coaching money, you only get so many opportunities to do this. Moving on over to the NFC East, I've got the Commanders winning that division at 13-4. Eagles a game back in second place at 12-5. Third place, I got the Cowboys at 6-11. I got the Giants at 2-15. Giants might be a little bit harsh here. I think for me, they cannot let Russell Wilson start a game, and they're probably going to. I realize I'm wearing a Giants blue shirt here today, but whatever. Give it to Jameis Winston, and if Jackson Dart's ready, give it to him. I don't trust the coaching staff with Brian Daboll. I don't trust the general manager with Joe Shane. Don't trust ownership with John Mara. There's players to be had on this team. There's talent to be had. And I will say this. If it hits the fan, maybe this is where Bill Belichick comes and coaches. Maybe he leaves North Carolina after a year. This is a job that I think people would really like to have. I think Dart can play. I think it'll kind of be it'll take some time, but he reminds me of Baker Mayfield, and that works in the NFL. Threw a lot of passes for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. Not necessarily like the truest of air raids, but like he'll make it work. And then the Cowboys, the Jerry Jones of it all. As long as he's the owner of this team, it's not a serious football team anymore. We've crossed the Al Davis Rubicon into whatever the hell that was his last few years on earth. I feel bad for Brian Schottenheimer. He may be a 1-0 head coach. I don't know who's going to take this job other than Lincoln Riley to potentially exit from like USC. Cowboys are really going to miss Dan Quinn again. But again, like having George Pickens come in at wide receiver to complement CeeDee Lamb. Dak Prescott's got to play well. Don't really know what they got in the running game. And I think the Cowboys was like the one team that I did this. I'm like, man, I can't believe they had them going like 6-11. Cody Williams is going to be happy about that, but that's how I feel about this. And then moving on to the NFC West, I've got the LA Rams winning it barely at 9-8, holding the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Arizona Cardinals at 9-8 and the 49ers at 9-8. And then I've got the Seahawks a game back at 8-9. I'm of the belief that this division is going to be a bloodbath and that maybe 2 games separate first place from last. I think with the Seahawks, there's just so much unknown there. I don't really trust Sam Darnold, although I think he'll play decently in Clint Kubiak's system. With the 49ers, I understand they get Robert Saleh back, but offensive line's not in great shape. The roster's getting old. I understand that you had to pay Brock Purdy his money, but this is the last year that this team's going to probably be potentially really good because the Purdy contract kicks in 26. Once that happens, they can't afford to pay everybody under the sun like they've been doing. Wide receiver room kind of sucks. Just don't like it. But again, they can dominate in the trenches and they'll blow stuff up. So I can see San Francisco. I can really see any of these teams winning the division. And then Arizona, a team I'm very high on, but like they just need to be a little bit tighter. I think there's a ceiling with Kyler Murray at quarterback. This team's kind of working towards it, kind of like the Nuggets were under Jokic there for a while. Eventually they'll break through. But it may not be necessarily a playoff season for the Cardinals, but this is a team that I'm not looking forward to playing later in the season. I think that team's going to be pretty good. So in terms of seeding in the NFC, I've got the Commanders with the 1 seed, Lions at the 2 seed, our Falcons are the 3 seed, and the Rams are the 4 seed. Number 5 is going to be the Eagles, 6 Packers, 7 Buccaneers. So I've got the Lions getting past the Buccaneers pretty easily. I think Mayfield throws a couple of picks there in this game, really flips the game on its head. And a game where the game is going to be closer than what the score indicates, but it won't matter. The Lions will still prevail. In our game, I've got us getting past Matt LaFleur and the Packers. Last time the Falcons had a home playoff game, they beat the Packers to go to the Super Bowl. And I think that we see like the first really awesome moment with Michael Penix Jr. like in the postseason. Going to be phenomenal. I'm really excited. This is going to be a game where like the Falcons win it. You're like, okay, I think the Falcons might win the Super Bowl next year, or they're going to be really, really good. But I also think that this is the one where like the Packers, it's like, what are we doing? Like, where are we going with this team? So I'd be a little concerned there. I would also move on down to the 4 versus 5 with the Rams hosting the Eagles. Again, I think the Eagles beat them again. This is the last year the Rams are going to be any good. I think they fall off a cliff after this year. Eagles, again, they're 12-5. They probably would have been the 2 seed or the 3 seed if we just did straight seeding in all of this. But the playoff experience, the Super Bowl experience this team's had, I really just like them getting past the Rams here. So you got the Commanders hosting the Eagles, and then the Falcons are going to the Lions. I've got the Eagles beating the Commanders, flexing their wings and spreading their wings, if you will, asserting their dominance over Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn and stuff like that. People are going to be so mad there in the DMV, but who cares? I got the Eagles moving on. And then I think this is where the road stops here for your Falcons. Just a little bit better players across the board. If this game were at home, maybe I'd give it to the Falcons, but the fact it's going to be in Detroit, I'm going to give it to the Lions. So then you've got the Eagles at the Lions with the NFC on the line, and there's going to be more heartbreak in Motown. I got the Eagles going back to the Super Bowl. Yeah, they may not win the division, but this team's still going to win 5 games. They're going to the Super Bowl, and they're going to face the Ravens. But they're going to lose the Ravens. Baltimore Ravens get their 3rd Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson officially punches his ticket to the Hall of Fame with the Super Bowl MVP. John Harbaugh gets in there as well. The Ravens, I think, are the most complete team in football. I've never picked them to win a Super Bowl in my life entering the season. This is the year to do it, and I feel pretty good about it. Whew. All right. Moving on to our penultimate subject or topic today with the less I know, the better. I love doing this one. What did I get? I do this after kind of like every season or school year and fall start of college football. Just like, what am I going to basically, what did I get the most right about the Falcons this summer? What I learned the most about them, and what am I going to keep getting wrong? So what I was the most right about is I think the team and everybody is just really confident what Michael Penix Jr. can do. He can just do stuff in practice that Cousins can't do physically. His teammates really love him. Really good leader, kind of a guy that just seems like one of the guys. And he thrived, in high school at Tampa, initially in the Big Ten in Indiana, and then the final years of the Pac-12 with Washington. I just think that I think we're really excited about our quarterback right now. And if he doesn't play well, if he stinks, Cousins can come in and clean up after him. But feel pretty confident about how everybody feels about Penix right now. What I learned the most about this team, man, I can't trust what they're doing in terms of rounding out their 53-man roster. They love to pay guys money in free agency and then cut them, and then bring in and sign people that nobody thought was going to make this team. I am really glad they didn't cut anybody from the draft picks, even though I don't think Jack Nelson played well at all. But I think for the most part that that this team, the front office, Terry Fontenot kind of feels like he's just making up as he goes, filling out the latter part of the roster. Once he gets past players 35 to 40, he's just throwing poo at the wall and see what sticks. This could come back to bite us in the ass, and it almost certainly will. So fingers crossed that it doesn't. And what am I going to keep getting wrong about the Falcons? I'm still going to be optimistic about this team heading in every year. And again, I have them winning the division because, they swept the Bucs a year ago. If they would have played better down the stretch, they would have gotten in. They went 8-9, best year since making the playoffs 2 years ago. They're at their stage in their competitive life cycle to win the division. Let me put it this way. If they don't make the playoffs this year, I'm not going to be saying this time next year. Maybe make a wild card, but I'm not going to say, they're going to win the division. But I'm still going to probably be bullish on the team. 11-6 feels about right, but this team could also go 7-10. It could also be the inverse of that if it really hits the fan. I don't think it will. Got to get to double-digit wins and really kind of be in the mix to make the playoffs, because you got to remember there's teams there's other high-quality teams up there beyond the I have the Buccaneers as the 7th seed, and they went 11-6. And the only reason we're not the 7th seed in this situation is because of a tiebreaker. However, I ended up breaking down the entire season schedule. So, yeah, I'm going to continue to be bullish. I'm going to continue to be optimistic on the Falcons. I picked Georgia to win the national championship in college football for some dumb reason. I don't know. I just felt like doing it. They got to the championship in my simulation versus Ohio State. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, sure. Why not? All right. And then the last topic of the day, let's remember some birds. Haven't done this in a while. Can't remember if I've done any of these players before, but we're doing this now. Let's start with a guy who was so crucial for us to get to the Super Bowl back in 2016. That's wide receiver Mohamed Sanu. This is a guy maybe a couple months older than me, played his college football at Rutgers, initially a quarterback, moved to wide receiver. Phenomenal quarterback whenever he could throw the ball on occasion in the NFL. Never going to be your number one type of receiver, but a guy that you could always trust to make the big play. Very physical, could line him up anywhere. Really good complimentary guy to Julio Jones. Was the same sort of thing initially in the NFL with my dog AJ Green. I think he played for the team for about 3.5 years. Got traded midway through the 2019 season to the Patriots. Didn't necessarily pan out much after that. Kind of bounced around the league. Played a little bit here and there with the 49ers, Patriots, and Lions before I think he signed with the Dolphins in 22. But it's been out of the league for the last few years. But also, he just turned 36. Phenomenal player there for Greg Schiano there at Rutgers. Nearly 5,000 receiving yards, 27 touchdowns. The guy could make plays with the ball in his hands. Just an ideal number 2 receiver you'd hope to have in your team. Wish we could have had him from the start. If we would have had him instead of with the Bengals, that would have been amazing. But we had Julio Jones, so it's all right. Moving on to a guy that had a really couple great years here with the Falcons, but pretty quickly fizzled out of the league. That'd be a safety, Thomas Deku. Don't think we remember him before. So he's from Pinole Valley High School in the Bay Area, which is the same alma mater of Billy Joe Armstrong and Mike Dirnt of Green Day, although Billy Joe didn't graduate. Gino Torretta, the Heisman Trophy winner for the Miami Hurricanes, he played there. Chris Singleton in baseball. So there have been some guys that have played in that part of the Bay Area. Played at Cal, then comes to the Falcons, the 2008 draft as the 98th overall pick. Played for the Falcons for, I believe, 6 years from 08 to 13. Pro Bowler there in 2012. Again, that might actually have been the Falcons' best team in franchise history. Went 13-3, get to the NFC Championship game, have a 17-0 lead at halftime, and blow it to the 49ers. Navarro Bowman, you are a dirty, dirty, dirty player. And but that year in 12, DQ had he had 6 picks. 6 of his 15 career picks came that season. Career high in tackle for loss of 4. Played all 16 games. Just an absolute menace there for the Falcons. Very healthy player for the team. But I think he ended up being. I think the Falcons released him after the 2013 season, and then he signed a 2-year deal with the Panthers. Played there for a year, and then they released him as well. A guy that, like, again, his career didn't last particularly long, but was certainly a piece in the secondary we could trust for about 3 to 5 years there to play at a high level. And then finally, I'm going to go with the guy, kind of book into this. We talked about Kaleb McGary here. How about right tackle Ryan Schraeder? And this is what gives me hope. This is a guy from Wichita, Kansas, walked on to Buhler Community College, and he ended up making the team there. And then eventually he went on to play at Valdosta State down there in Valdosta. Went undrafted from Maize, Kansas, like corn, Maize. Played for the Falcons from 13 to 18, so 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 6 years here. He was a first-team All-Pro in 2015, Division II national champion there at Valdosta. And I think, like, when I think back to the 2016 team, the team that went to the Super Bowl the second time, I can remember the offensive line like it was yesterday. Jake Matthews at left tackle. You got Andy Levitri at left guard. You got Alex Mack at center. Chris Chester at right guard. And then Ryan Schraeder there at right tackle. Again, Schraeder was the perfect guy, like the third best piece along this offensive line. The Falcons' 2 best offensive linemen at that point were Alex Mack at center and Jake Matthews at left tackle. Probably, Chris Chester is kind of the end of his career, phenomenal college player, decent NFL player. Levitri really played out of his mind that year. But if this team would not have been as good without Schraeder. This is a diamond in the rough that Thomas Dimitroff found locally and got everything out of him. The guy played in the NFL for, 6 years, played 88 games, made 73 starts. The weird thing for me is he only played for the Falcons. And I know it's a gladiator sport, but I thought, playing for a team that was pretty good there for a while, Matt basically like protecting the front side for Matt Ryan the entire time he's there. Really thought that he would have catched on with somebody else, but I guess not. But again, he's always going to remember playing for the Falcons. Same with Deku. And then Falcons fans, Rutgers fans, and Bengals fans will always think highly of Mohamed Sanu. Did a lot of talking today, but this was episode 56 of the Blog and Dirty podcast. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. You can follow the show along on YouTube at Blog and Dirty FS. You can follow along to all the written work on Blog and Dirty at Blog and Dirty on Twitter or the X. Be sure to read all of your Atlanta Falcons content on Blog and Dirty, FanSided.com, ATL all day, NFL Spin Zone. Just read any FanSided media article across the board. It's good for our business. It's all under the same umbrella. I don't know if I'm going to get a lot of my division picks and Super Bowl right, but I'm just happy that I did the math and the Falcons ultimately ended up making it in here. But that's really what I want the goal to be: win more than 10 games, win the division, get a home playoff game, win a home playoff game, and keep on moving on. That's where you can follow me there on Twitter, on social media, and everything like that. So be sure to do that. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe button here on YouTube. Give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. Really helps the show grow there. Do the same on Spotify. Just anywhere you see the show, just give it props. Say John Buhler is so effing awesome. I love this dude. He's so good. His Falcons knowledge is second to nobody. I don't know if that's true, but I know a lot, and so do you guys. So, yeah, once again, thanks for listening. And this is the Blog and Dirty Podcast.